Hello everyone, this is Donnie aka Elevated with Dota Alchemy. Thank you for tuning in again today. Today's video is by request. We've been getting a lot of questions about what are the best mid heroes of the current patch after we did our video of what are the strongest carries of 7.17. So this video is not just going to be talking about specifically the heroes, but we're going to kind of talk about how we arrived at this point in the meta. And then we are going to go over some heroes that are very strong right now and being picked up a lot in the pro scene and high MMR games that I think that you should learn to improve your game and win some MMR currently. So in the last year, the mid lane in Dota has changed a lot. One thing has remained constant, however, and that is that the mid tier 1 tower is the most important tower on the map. And that's just because it provides the most map control out of any of the towers on the map. If you lose the mid tier 1 tower, you lose vision of a very crucial part of the map, including the Roshan pit and various entrances to both jungles on either side of the map. So the tier 1 tower being alive is really, really important. And we kind of learned that because when mid players were leaving the lane to rotate in the previous meta, when sort of pushing heroes were very popular, the tier 1 tower would fall, and suddenly the team that lost their tier 1 tower would be at a huge, huge disadvantage. For a while there, also, the towers were farther back from the river, and this meant that mid heroes were very vulnerable to being ganked with smokes or at nighttime. This also kind of helped develop a meta where a lot of the focus was on the mid lane. We had, dual and tri lanes mid, and because of all this ganking in the mid lane, the mid heroes tended to either be carries because of the amount of resources that were required to keep the mid lane kind of stable, or the lane would just be sacrificed and then the carry would be in a fairly traditional spot, but then the mid lane would just be something like a Necrophos or a Venomancer or somebody that could kind of just like sit there and keep the mid tower alive and avoid dying as much as possible. But now that the towers have been moved forward, it is much harder to gank the mid lane. And that, when you add in the recent bounty rune change where bounties no longer appear every minute and they don't give experience, it means that roamers who would previously kind of camp the mid lane and then go grab the bounty runes and then hit bottom and then come back to the mid lane are no longer able to just kind of sit there and not get experience and not get gold and not get levels. So this has kind of created a newer meta where various heroes that would previously have had too dangerous of a time in the mid lane are starting to re-emerge as decent or good picks in the current meta. Mid lane is not messy anymore. Sometimes it is, but it's a lot more often a one-on-one matchup like it was, a year or a couple years ago. And as a result, the hero pool has expanded because people still like some of the heroes that became popular in the very messy mid lane meta. But in addition to that, we're starting to see some of these other heroes who require maybe a better start or more solo experience also coming back into being picked. The wider hero pool allows for a lot of different playstyles in the mid lane now, so it's kind of important to know what you want to do in a game and what you need to do to be successful. Some heroes are only viable, as I said, with a very good start, but at least in the current meta, those heroes are viable some of the time. One of the things that we're seeing a lot in the mid lane is that mid heroes tend to have a very strong level 6 power spike, and that allows them to kind of tempo control in a lot of cases, either by killing the opposing mid laner and then putting pressure on the tower or forcing rotations, or rotating to another lane and pressuring that tower, maybe netting themselves a couple kills on the enemy carry and some supports before pressuring the safe lane tower. Heroes like Bloodseeker, Mirana, Ember Spirit, Storm Spirit, and Lina are starting to be very popular in the mid lane because of their mobility. They're able to quickly go to another lane, net themselves a couple kills, and then return to the mid lane without having to sacrifice a ton of damage on the tower necessarily if they time their gank at the right time. That being said, there's also a few more passive heroes that are becoming popular as well. We're having a rise in popularity for heroes like Templar Assassin, Zeus, and Tinker. all of which have a slightly later power spike timing. Zeus obviously has a pretty strong one at level 6, but generally speaking, TA, Zeus, and Tinker all need 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 items before they can really take over the game. But all of these heroes function quite well in this new, safer mid lane because they can just shove out the wave, go farm some Ancients or some stacks in the jungle, and then return to keep the wave off the tower until they've hit their item timings where they can then take over the game. You'll also notice that all the heroes that I mentioned, even the ones previously, Bloodseeker, Mirana, Ember Spirit, Lina, and Storm, are all very good at taking stacks. And if you remember, in addition to the Bounty Rune change, we also had a lot of gold reductions for towers and barracks, which means that just all-inning on push is no longer super good in a lot of cases, and just generally speaking, there's a lot less gold on the map, which means that if you have some way to accelerate a hero via stacking, for example, then that hero has a very good chance of becoming very, very powerful. So whether you're playing a Tinker, a TA, a Zeus, you can stack for yourself, you can have support stack for you. If you're a Storm Spirit or Ember Spirit, Mirana, Bloodseeker, all these heroes can also take stacks in the jungle when they don't necessarily have lane creeps to hit. And this allows them to take that acceleration that they already get from having solo experience in the lane and then really snowball it into a hardcore advantage in the early to mid game and then mid to late game, depending on which hero you're playing. A couple of the heavy push heroes are still finding some play in the professional scene, like Death Prophet and Dragon Knight. These are just very stable, sort of any draft heroes that will give you kind of an anchor and the ability to hit towers, so you can still pick them up if you need to. But we also are now kind of going into an age where it is really all about tempo controlling playmakers who want to play solo, roam around the map, get kills, split push the lanes, and pressure towers on their own, like a Templar Assassin does, or a Tinker, or a Lina shadow blading around the jungle, finding pickoffs, and then pushing towers off of that. So it's kind of a fun time to be a mid laner because you have a decent amount of variety, you have a decent amount of different play styles that you can play, and I think that if you start incorporating a couple of these heroes, we're seeing a lot of early pick Ember Spirits and Storm Spirits and Linas, and Mirana seems to be really one of the stars of the TI8 qualifiers because people are starting to realize that she actually makes a pretty decent carry with her triple leap, attack speed talent, and the changes to the Mjolnir and Maelstrom item. So those are my suggestions if you want to win some MMR in the mid lane. And if you would like to hear some more about these heroes or ask for other suggestions, feel free to hit us up in the comment section below or tweet at us at Dota Alchemy because we are always happy to answer questions. And if you would like to do that in real time, stop by our Discord. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you win some games, and we will see you next time.